And the fact is, anything that lets an illegal immigrant stay legally is an amnesty, pure and simple. I mean, there's all different kinds. Maybe they get a green card, maybe they only get a work permit. There's all different ways to do it, but an amnesty is an amnesty. There clearly are people in the administration pushing this.
Donald Trump has been in some controversy recently around this issue of giving amnesty to illegal migrants. Now, he says that he will not give amnesty to illegals, but he has opened the door to potentially giving out work permits to some illegals who are working on farms and things like that. What do you make of this controversy around amnesty? Do you think that Trump will be giving out amnesty or these work permits in some way?
Well, I mean, the possibility is there. To be clear, people pushing amnesty always say that what they are for isn't really an amnesty. This is a game that Democratic and Republican politicians have been playing for 20 years. And the fact is, anything that lets an illegal immigrant stay legally is an amnesty, pure and simple. I mean, there's all different kinds. Maybe they get a green card, maybe they only get a work permit. There's all different ways to do it, but an amnesty is an amnesty. There clearly are people in the administration pushing this. The Agriculture Secretary, Brooke Rollins, who has always been bad on the immigration issue in general, even in the first administration, is really the main engine behind this. The president, my sense is what the president's doing is floating ideas and doing market research in a sense. You know what I mean? This is often the way he operates. He'll throw an idea out there and see what the reaction is. What do people think? And he's getting some real pushback from members of Congress and from the public in general. We'll see. The thing is, he can't really just give out work permits to people. This is the kind of thing that will require some kind of action by Congress. And the idea of the likelihood of getting any kind of amnesty, even if it's just a limited work permit amnesty like this, or something that he's also floated, what's called a touchback amnesty, where an illegal immigrant would cross the border into Mexico and kind of be born again by coming right back across. Anything like that would require some kind of action by Congress, and the idea that this Congress is going to pass anything like that seems highly unlikely.
What's your view on the merits of handing out work permits or some de facto amnesty? Because Trump makes the argument that a lot of farms, a lot of agricultural businesses do rely on basically illegal migrant labor, and the same in the hotel industry and other industries. And without this labor, some of these companies couldn't function properly. So how do you respond to that argument? Do you sympathize with it?
In a sense, what some industries are saying is that our business model is based on mass illegal labor. And that's not a business model that federal policy should be supporting. To use a different analogy, a lot of these businesses are hooked. They're addicted to this use of cheap foreign labor. And what this idea of work permits is like is methadone to a heroin addict. In other words, it's sort of a way to, supposedly ease them off of this addiction. It never really works that way. You just end up taking methadone indefinitely, and there's no such thing as a permanent there's no such thing as a temporary fix in the immigration area. We've seen that in other areas. There's something called temporary protected status, which is there's nothing to do with agriculture, but the point is that it's supposedly a temporary status, only a stopgap. There are people who've had this for 20, 25 years. So the idea that we're going to give work permits to some illegal immigrants working on farms only for a little while is just baloney. The way to deal with this is not necessarily to go cold turkey, to continue the addiction analogy, but the only way that would even happen is if all illegal immigrants magically disappeared tomorrow. And that's not, that literally could not happen, even if you wanted that to happen, because removing illegal immigrants is a process that takes place over time rather than some kind of one-time event that we wake up tomorrow morning and it's all over. What that means is that gives the market time to adjust so that employers can recruit among pools of workers they never bothered to look for before, offer higher wages, different shifts, different other arrangements of work. Maybe, for instance, this is something that you saw with chicken plants did in the South after raids there, is they started van pools, free van service from nearby towns for people who didn't have cars would still be able to get to this factory to work. That kind of thing is the way we back out of this unhealthy addiction to illegal labor, and we've seen it in a very small sense work just recently. There was a raid on a meatpacking plant in Omaha, Nebraska, and 2 days later the hiring office was full, standing room only, with Americans and legal immigrants applying for the jobs that had been opened up. So no, this is not something necessary in order to keep Americans fed. There may well be some marginal businesses that go out of business because their business model of using mass illegal labor is no longer available. That's the way capitalism works. Too bad.
Should we be concerned, or should MAGA voters be concerned, about Trump and his policy on this stuff? I think he's been pretty strong on the deportation so far, but obviously even Tom Homan is saying that there hasn't been enough people being deported. So just overall, when it comes to deportations, when it comes to the border, do you think MAGA voters should worry about Trump's line on this?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's a couple of points to make. First is Trump has talked about stuff like this for 10 years. I mean, even during the primary debates in 2016, he was talking about, well, some employers need seasonal labor from abroad, this kind of thing. So this should not come as a surprise to anybody. And as far as the enforcement stuff, the idea that he has somehow gone soft because the numbers aren't high enough or what have you is actually false. One of the major bottlenecks in increasing the number of deportations, and they're already very high for inside the country, higher than any previous administration, is the funding for detention space. In other words, you arrest somebody, you have to hold them somewhere until you can do the paperwork, both U.S. paperwork, but also the travel documents for their home countries. You have to hold them somewhere until you get all that stuff done. There's no point to arresting somebody if you're just going to let them go because you don't have any detention space. The bill that the president just signed actually deals with that and increases significantly the amount of funding for detention space, and they're going to be able to ramp that up very quickly, because it's not like they're going to build new buildings. They're going to put out contracts to private companies that have these facilities already in place. So you're going to see the numbers go up. So I have personally no concern about the administration somehow going soft on enforcement areas. As far as the issue of whatever, guest workers, seasonal workers, that kind of thing, president's always been there. It's his base's job to make clear that this is something they're not for, so that he will navigate kind of the political shoals here. Because I think it's entirely possible to extend, if I could extend this market research idea, I think one of the things he's doing is talking about these measures because agricultural and hotel and restaurant industry lobbyists and their representatives in the administration are talking about it. So he's saying this to make them feel better, but also in order to get his own voters to push back so that he can say, well, look, my hands are tied. I'm all for you, Mr. Big Donor, but there's nothing I can do because the voters really don't like it, so sorry. In other words, he's playing a kind of political game, and I don't even mean that in a derogatory sense. You have to, as the leader of any kind of coalition, you have to navigate various interests. And so far, he seems to be sort of managing that coalition management, as it were, reasonably well. So I think this is part of that.
Do you expect this huge increase in funding for ICE to have a major impact on the numbers of illegal migrants being deported? I know that there's some bottlenecks in the system, particularly the numbers available in detention centres. The number that ICE is available, or let me rephrase that. The amount of money that's available for ICE has gone up from, I think, around $2 billion to tens of billions of dollars. Some have even made the comparison that ICE's budget is bigger than most militaries around the world. So do you think this will have a tangible impact on the deportation program?
Well, I mean, Florida's budget is probably bigger than most militaries in the world. So, I mean, but yes, it's a large increase. Although you have to keep it in context. This is an amount of money designed to be spent over a period of years. It's not as though this is, but ICE's budget is increasing, 20-fold tomorrow. But yes, it will have a impact. The immediate impact, or the relatively short-term impact, will be increased funding for detention and transportation, because you got to pay for the airplane tickets to send people home. All of that stuff costs money. And then in the somewhat longer term, you're going to see more agents brought online. But whether Border Patrol agents or ICE agents, that takes time. You don't want to just give somebody a badge and a gun without properly screening them, doing background checks. It's extensive training. The immigration law is probably the most complicated area of law after the tax code. And so you need to make sure they know what they're doing. So that's the kind of thing that will show up, in year 2 or 3, that kind of thing. But immediately the detention and transportation and all those kinds of things are going to translate into not just more arrests, but more of the arrested people actually gotten out of the country expeditiously, hopefully.
And finally, what do you make of this Alligator Alcatraz? This is the detention center in Florida. You mentioned Florida earlier, where I know that a lot of Democrats have kind of criticized this as being inhumane, and there's videos showing the detention center, and they say that this isn't how you should treat people.
It's a detention center, and people are held there until they're removed. That it's not punishment. It's not like regular prison. The point is, any of these people could have avoided all of this by simply going home on their own, or not contesting their removal, at which point they'd sort of be on the, get in line for the next flight back to wherever they came from. The important point about this is that it is a Florida project. This is the state actually assisting in a very significant way federal law enforcement, and this is something a lot of states can do. Florida's the one that has stepped up, but there's no reason, any other state, Texas, Iowa, or anywhere else that has some significant number of illegal immigrants couldn't devote state resources to helping ICE. So they're not really, it's not as though state police are walking around and checking people's green cards, but the state is kind of integrating its operations into ICE and increasing ICE's capacity. So this is a great idea, and other states should be doing it. Now, they may have to come up with other nicknames other than Alligator Alcatraz. I'm not a nickname guy. I'm sure the president could come up with them. But this is something other states should be and could be doing.